The cold air bit sharply at her face as she stepped inside the lavish watch boutique. The glass doors slid shut behind her with a quiet whisper, sealing her in a world that glittered with wealth. Rows of gleaming watches sparkled under the soft lighting, each one a masterpiece of precision and luxury. It was a place where the rich came to indulge, where the ordinary were mere spectators. She was an unlikely visitor. Her coat, worn and patched at the elbows, did little to mask the nervous flutter in her chest. The stark contrast between her modest appearance and the opulence surrounding her was as clear as day. She moved cautiously, her eyes scanning the glittering displays, searching for a particular model, one she had dreamed about for years but never dared to touch. "Can I help you, madam?" The sharp voice cut through the silence, drawing her attention to the young saleswoman standing nearby. The woman's eyes flicked over her from head to toe, a thin smile playing at the edges of her lips. It was the kind of smile that said, "You don't belong here. I'm looking for the heritage collection," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The saleswoman's smile widened, a cruel sparkle in her eyes. "Oh, those are quite expensive. Are you sure? They're not really for everyone." A few other customers glanced over, their eyes filled with barely concealed amusement. A whisper floated through the air. "Who does she think she is?" The luxury watch shop was no place for someone like her. She felt the weight of their gazes, heavy and judgmental. But she didn't flinch. Instead, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. This was her moment. She wasn't here to be mocked or dismissed. She was here because of a promise she had made, a promise that had carried her through years of hardship. "Please," she said quietly, "I want to see the heritage collection." The saleswoman shrugged, clearly unimpressed, and led her toward the display case. Inside, the watches gleamed like tiny stars trapped in glass. Each one was a marvel of craftsmanship, designed for those who could afford the best. As the woman pointed to a particularly exquisite timepiece, the saleswoman made a sharp, dismissive comment, just loud enough for the others to hear. "Maybe you're hoping to win the lottery." Laughter rippled quietly among the crowd. The woman's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. Just then, the heavy doors swung open again, and a tall man stepped inside. His presence was commanding, the kind of presence that made people take notice without trying. The room fell silent. The man walked straight to her side. His eyes met hers with a quiet intensity that stopped the mocking in its tracks. "She's serious," he said simply. The saleswoman's smile faltered. "And who might you be?" "My husband," he replied, voice low but steady. A hush fell over the boutique. The other customers exchanged surprised glances. This man, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, radiated confidence and authority. There was no doubt he belonged here. The woman's heart raced. She had hoped for this moment, but never dared to expect it. Her husband's arrival was the shockwave that changed everything. Without another word, he took the woman's hand and led her to the display. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. The saleswoman's eyes widened in disbelief as he tapped the card on the counter. The screen blinked, approving the transaction instantly. "I'll take it," he said. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Whispers turned into outright gasps. Who was this man? Why had he brought this woman here? And why was he buying such an expensive watch for her? The woman looked down at the timepiece, her fingers trembling. This was more than just a watch. It was a symbol of a journey marked by struggle, determination, and unwavering hope. As the man signed the receipt, the woman's mind drifted back to the years they had spent fighting against the odds. She remembered the nights when they had nothing but dreams, the days when survival seemed impossible, and the moments when they had almost given up. This watch wasn't just a luxury. It was a testament to their resilience, a proof that sometimes life surprises you in the most unexpected ways. The saleswoman, now silent and defeated, handed over the box with a forced smile. The couple turned and walked toward the door, their steps slow but sure. Outside, the cold air greeted them again. The woman glanced at her husband, gratitude shining in her eyes. He smiled, a rare softness touching his features. "We made it," he said, but little did they know, this was just the beginning of a story far more complicated than any watch could tell. Behind the luxury and the shock lay secrets waiting to unravel, secrets that would test their bond and challenge everything they thought they knew. And the world outside, it was watching, waiting for the next move. That's the impactful, dramatic start, about 700 words so far. I'll continue expanding and deepening the story to reach the full 2,000 words, adding more suspense, human emotions, and subtle hints of the mystery to come. Continuing now. She pulled the heavy box closer to her chest as they stepped out into the brisk afternoon. The streets buzzed with everyday life, unaware of the small drama that had just unfolded inside that luxury shop. Her hands shook slightly, not from the cold, but from the flood of emotions rushing through her: disbelief, pride, fear. Her husband walked beside her, tall and steady, his expression unreadable. He had played the part of the calm protector today, but she knew the weight he carried was just as heavy as hers. They had come a long way from the cramped apartment where they had shared meals of rice and hope. "Do you remember the first time you told me about this watch?" he asked quietly, breaking the silence. She smiled faintly, warmth creeping back. "It was more like a dream than a plan. I never thought it would happen. But here we are," he said, glancing down at her. "Not by luck, but because we fought for it." Her mind drifted back to those earlier days, days when money was tighter than the threadbare seams of her coat. The years when the luxury they now touched had been a distant, unattainable fantasy. It was hard to believe they had crossed the chasm from survival to success. But it hadn't been easy, not by a long shot. The past held memories sharp as shards. Of glass, nights spent wondering if tomorrow would come, endless searches for work that barely paid, the exhaustion that settled deep in their bones. There were moments when the world seemed to collapse around them, when every step forward felt like sinking deeper into quicksand. Yet something inside her never gave up. A stubborn spark of hope, fueled by love and fierce determination. She squeezed her husband's hand. "We earned this." A faint shadow passed over his face, quickly replaced by a reassuring smile. "Yes, but earning it is just the start. There's still so much ahead." She knew what he meant. That watch was more than just a symbol of triumph. It was a key to a new chapter, one filled with unexpected challenges and secrets. As they turned the corner, a sudden chill ran down her spine. Something about the way people glanced at them felt different now, curious, maybe even wary. The world outside the shop was no longer the same place they had left behind. Unbeknownst to them, someone else had noticed. A man standing across the street watched intently. His eyes narrowed as he studied the couple. The black box in her hands gleamed like a beacon. There was something about their presence here, in this upscale neighborhood, that didn't fit. He pulled out his phone and tapped a message. "They have it," he typed, "and she's with him." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Back inside the shop, the saleswoman was already sharing the story with a friend. "Can you believe it? That woman, the one we laughed at, she's married to some big shot. No wonder he just bought the heritage watch for her. Talk about a twist." Her laughter was sharp, but beneath it lay unease. This wasn't just about money or status anymore. It was something deeper, something dangerous. Meanwhile, the woman and her husband found a quiet cafe nearby. They sat down at a small table, the box between them like a fragile bridge between their past and future. "Tell me everything," he said softly. She took a deep breath. and began to recount the journey that had led them here. The struggles, the sacrifices, the moments of despair and hope. The watch had been her secret dream, a symbol of a life they once thought impossible. As she spoke, she felt the weight lift slightly. Sharing her story was like unlocking a door that led to something neither of them fully understood. Yet outside, the city hummed with life. But beneath the surface, the wheels of fate were turning. Little did they know, the watch was more than just a luxury item. It was linked to a mystery tangled in shadows, a secret buried deep in the past, and, as night fell, the first cracks in their new world began to show. The phone in the stranger's hand buzzed again. Another message. They don't know it yet, but everything's about to change. For the woman and her husband, the journey was only just beginning. The night wrapped the city in a thick, restless blanket. Neon signs flickered, casting ghostly lights on rain-slicked streets. Inside their modest apartment, the woman sat by the window, the box with the watch resting unopened on the table. Her fingers traced the edge absent-mindedly as her mind spun with the day's strange events. The luxury watch, the mocking in the boutique, her husband's sudden appearance. None of it felt like a coincidence anymore. Something was stirring beneath the surface of their carefully built world. Her husband sat across from her, the calm steadiness in his eyes hiding a storm she couldn't yet see. He finally broke the silence, voice low and deliberate. "We need to talk about what happened today," she nodded, biting her lip. "They don't know the half of it." He leaned forward, fingers clasped. "It's not just about the watch, is it?" She shook her head. "No, it's bigger, much bigger." For years, they had lived in a bubble of survival, barely scraping by, hiding from troubles both financial and personal. But now that bubble had burst, and something new was pressing in on them. Something tied to the very watch she held, but hadn't yet opened. Her husband stood and moved to the small bookshelf. Pulling out a worn folder, he placed it on the table. Inside were old photographs, letters and documents, things they had buried long ago. "This," he said, "is why the watch matters." She picked up a faded photo of a man in a suit, eyes sharp and serious. "Your father," he nodded. "Yes, and his connection to the Heritage Collection isn't just about luxury, it's about secrets and danger." The woman looked up, heart pounding. "What kind of danger?" He hesitated, then said, "My father was involved in something that cost him his life. The watch is a key to that story." The room seemed to shrink around them as the weight of those words settled. The simple desire to own a beautiful watch had become tangled with a legacy neither of them fully understood. Outside, the city's pulse quickened as a storm began to roll in. Thunder rumbled in the distance, mirroring the turmoil inside their small apartment. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again. A message lit the screen, but the sender was unknown. It read, "You're closer than you think. Don't trust anyone." The woman's hand trembled as she showed the message to her husband. He frowned. "This isn't just about a watch. Someone is watching us." Fear flickered in her eyes, but beneath it was something stronger, a determination forged in hardship. "We have to find out the truth," she said. Her husband agreed. "Tomorrow, we start digging." The next day, the city wore a different face. The rain had washed the streets clean, but the shadows clung tighter. They moved carefully, navigating alleys and old offices, chasing whispers of the past. Their first stop was an old family friend, a historian who had known her husband's father well, in a cramped, dusty office filled with stacks of books and faded maps. The historian welcomed them with a wary smile. "I've been expecting you," he said cryptically. He spoke of a secret society, powerful and elusive, connected to the heritage watches. These watches were more than timekeepers, he explained. They were symbols, keys to hidden knowledge and influence. The woman felt the pieces clicking into place. The mocking at the shop, the sudden appearance of her husband, the threatening messages, it all pointed to something far beyond what they had imagined. As the historian pulled out an ancient map marked with cryptic symbols, he warned, "You're in dangerous territory. Some want those secrets buried forever." The couple exchanged glances. Their journey had shifted from survival to something far more perilous. Back on the streets, shadows lengthened. Unseen eyes followed their every move. A black car cruised slowly behind them, its passengers silent but watchful. Inside the car, a man spoke into a phone, voice cold and precise. "They've uncovered the first clue. Prepare to move." The woman's phone buzzed again. A photo. This time, it was of her standing outside the historian's office. The message, "We're closer than ever." Panic rose, but so did resolve. They knew that uncovering the truth would cost them everything, but turning back was no longer an option. As night fell again, they prepared to dive deeper into the mystery, unaware that every step brought them closer to a secret that could destroy them or save them. Night draped over the city like a heavy curtain, its dark folds swallowing the streets in silence. Inside a modest apartment, the woman sat at a small wooden table, her fingers hovering nervously above the unopened black box that held the watch. The soft glow of the street lamp outside painted faint shadows on her face, revealing a complex tangle of emotions: hope, fear, and an unsettling sense of foreboding. Across from her, her husband leaned back in a creaky chair, his gaze steady, but heavy with thought. The luxury watch they had just acquired was supposed to mark a new beginning, a symbol of everything they had endured and overcome. Instead, it seemed to have unearthed secrets they had tried to bury. "We need to talk," he said quietly, breaking the silence. She nodded, swallowing hard. "There's more to this than just the watch." He pulled a faded folder from a dusty corner shelf and set it on the table. Inside were photographs, letters, and brittle documents, artifacts of a past life they'd long tried to forget. "My father," he said, pointing to a black-and-white photo of a man with piercing eyes. "He was connected to the Heritage Collection in ways I only recently understood, and his death wasn't just an accident." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" He looked away, the weight of years pressing down. "There's a secret society tied to these watches, a shadow network of power and influence. My father tried to expose them, but he paid the price." A sudden buzz from her phone startled them. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "You're closer than you think. Don't trust anyone." She showed it to him. "Someone's watching us." He clenched his jaw. "Then we need to find out what they want." The next day, with the black box still unopened, they visited an old family friend, a historian who had once worked closely with her husband's father. His cramped office smelled of old paper and secrets. "I've been expecting you," the historian said, eyes gleaming with caution. He spoke of the heritage watches as more than luxury items. They were keys to a clandestine world, symbols of a powerful society operating in the shadows. Pulling out a yellowed map marked with cryptic symbols, he warned, "This isn't just about timepieces. It's about control, secrets, and survival. Many have vanished trying to uncover the truth. Fear and excitement course through them. The mocking smiles at the shop, the threatening messages, it all connected to this hidden network." Outside, a black car followed them silently, its occupants unseen but watching. Another message arrived on her phone, a photo of her standing outside. The historian's office captioned, "They're closer than ever." The stakes were clear. Their journey into the mystery would be dangerous, but retreat was no longer an option. As darkness deepened, they prepared to dive deeper, unaware that every revelation would challenge everything they believed, and that some truths were more terrifying than the unknown. The room felt colder, or maybe it was the weight of what they were about to face pressing down on them. The woman carefully lifted the lid of the black box, revealing the watch nestled inside, its gleam almost unnatural in the dim light. It was exquisite, every detail precise, every surface polished to perfection. But now it wasn't just a luxury item, it was a symbol of a legacy tangled with danger. Her husband watched her face, reading the mixture of awe and anxiety. "It's more than just a watch. My father believed it was a key, literally and figuratively." She looked up, eyes wide. "A key to what?" He reached into the folder again and pulled out a faded letter. The handwriting was elegant but hurried. It spoke of a hidden chamber beneath an old estate, where secrets of immense power were kept safe for generations. The heritage collection was tied to this chamber through a code, engraved on certain watches like theirs. "The chamber," he said, "holds information that could expose powerful people, disrupt corrupt systems. That's why my father died. He was getting too close." The woman's heart raced. She remembered the mocking laughter in the store, the saleswoman's sneer. This was bigger than social class or money. It was about survival, about uncovering truths some wanted buried. "We need to find that chamber," she said firmly. Her husband nodded. "But we have to be careful. There are others watching. We are not the only ones after this." They spent the next few days piecing together clues from the documents and photos, tracing their way back through the city's hidden history. Every step revealed more questions. Who were the members of this secret society? How far did their influence reach, and how much danger were the woman and her husband now in? One evening, as they worked late into the night, a loud knock shattered the silence. The woman froze. Her husband motioned to stay quiet. The knocking came again, more insistent. She crept to the peephole and saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a man in a dark coat, face obscured by a hood. "Who is it?" she whispered. "Stay back," her husband warned. He opened the door slightly, peering out. The man handed him a small envelope, then vanished into the night. Inside was a single card, embossed with an emblem neither of them recognized, and a message: "Stop digging or lose everything." The warning was clear and chilling, but instead of retreating, the woman felt a surge of determination. "We can't stop now," she said. "If they want to silence us, we have to fight harder." Her husband agreed, but fear lingered beneath his calm exterior. They realized this wasn't just a puzzle or a mystery. It was a battle for truth and survival. As days passed, mysterious events followed, strange phone calls with silence on the other end, a car tailing them on empty streets, and that constant feeling of eyes watching from the shadows. Still, they pressed on. Finally, the clues led them to an abandoned estate on the city's outskirts. The estate was crumbling, overgrown with weeds and vines, but the air around it felt charged, alive with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Inside the dusty halls, they found strange markings on the walls, symbols matching those on the map. Their hearts pounded as they descended a narrow staircase into darkness. At the bottom, a heavy door stood before them, its surface etched with intricate patterns. The husband took the watch from the woman's hand and pressed the crown against a hidden sensor. With a soft click, the door creaked open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with old books, papers, and strange artifacts. In the center, a desk held a leather-bound journal, the final piece of the puzzle. As the woman opened it, the chamber seemed to breathe with history and danger. The journal revealed shocking truths about the secret society, its reach, and the sacrifices made by those who opposed it, including her husband's father. Suddenly, footsteps echoed above. They weren't alone. The first of their pursuers had arrived. The door began to close. The woman grabbed the journal. "We have to move," her husband urged. They slipped through a narrow passage as the chamber sealed behind them. Outside, the rain had started again, washing the estate in grey shadows. Their lives had changed forever. What began as a simple visit to a luxury watch shop had pulled them into a world of secrets, lies, and deadly stakes. But the story was far from over. The rain hammered against the cold stone walls as they slipped out of the hidden passage, clutching the leather-bound journal like a lifeline. Their breaths came fast, mingling with the echoing footsteps still searching above. The weight of the past pressed down on them harder than ever, not just the secrets in the journal, but the looming threat closing in. Outside, the estates. Overgrown gardens were slick with water, each step slipping dangerously close to discovery. The woman's heart pounded in her chest, every sound amplified, every shadow suspicious. Her husband's hand found hers in the darkness, steadying, reassuring. "We can't go back," he whispered, voice barely audible over the storm. "No, we have the journal. We have to disappear, at least for now." She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "But where? Who can we trust?" He shook his head. "No one. That's the problem." They moved swiftly, disappearing into the night, their clothes soaked and clinging, minds racing with questions and fears. For days, they stayed off the grid, moving between safe houses and friends who knew only fragments of their story. The journal was carefully hidden, but its contents gnawed at their thoughts. Within those pages lay not just secrets, but a roadmap to a shadowy power structure controlling lives from behind the scenes. Names, dates, coded messages revealing corruption, betrayals, and cover-ups stretching decades back. The woman read through the pages late at night by candlelight, each revelation cutting deeper. One entry detailed a meeting decades ago in a remote location, where a faction of the secret society plotted to eliminate anyone threatening their control, including her husband's father. Another entry spoke of a hidden ledger, containing proof of the society's illegal dealings and names of their most influential members. Her husband's jaw clenched as he listened to her. "If this gets out, it could topple everything. But it could also destroy us," she whispered. Their safety was fragile, they were hunted, and the walls closing in. Even in the shadows, paranoia grew. Then came the first betrayal. A trusted friend suddenly vanished, leaving behind only a warning. Scrawled in haste, "They're watching. Don't trust the familiar." The woman's hands trembled as she read the note. "We're running out of time," her husband said grimly. The pressure forced them into the open to seek answers from the few who might help, old allies of her husband's father, now scattered and cautious. They arranged a secret meeting in a small cafe on the edge of the city, a place where whispered conversations hid beneath the hum of everyday life. An elderly man arrived, eyes sharp despite his age. He introduced himself as Thomas, a former member of the society who had turned against them years ago. "Your father was a good man," Thomas said quietly, "but he underestimated how deep the roots go." He revealed that the ledger mentioned in the journal was real, but its location had been lost when the society's leaders went underground after the father's death. "The ledger is the key," Thomas explained. "Find it, and you can bring them down. But beware. Many have died trying." The couple left the meeting with a new mission but a heavier sense of danger. Days later, they followed a lead to an old warehouse on the city's outskirts, a forgotten relic from a time when the society's influence was less hidden. Inside, dust and silence greeted them, but the air felt thick with secrets. They found a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard, but it was empty, save for a single folded note, "You're closer than you think." But some doors should stay closed. The message was both a warning and a challenge. They left the warehouse feeling hunted, but determined. Back at their hideout, the woman studied the journal again, searching for clues they might have missed. Suddenly, a page slipped free, a faded photograph of her husband's father, standing beside a man she recognized from a news report about a recent scandal involving powerful figures. The realization hit her. The society's reach extended, far beyond what they'd imagined, touching governments, corporations, even law enforcement. Their enemies were everywhere. One night, as she returned from a quick errand, the woman found the apartment ransacked. The journal was gone, her stomach dropped, Her husband was already on the phone, voice low but urgent. They found us. They took the journal. Desperation sharpened their resolve. They couldn't hide anymore. They had to fight. The next days were a blur of frantic planning and close calls. They reached out to a journalist known for exposing corruption, someone who might risk publishing the truth. But the journalist's office was attacked before they could meet. The woman and her husband narrowly escaped, their lives now a constant race against time. Amid the chaos, they found strength in each other, their bond deepening through fear and hope. One evening, they sat together, exhausted but unbroken. "We have to trust someone," she said. He nodded slowly. "The journalist. If anyone can get this story out, it's him." They arranged a final meeting in a secluded park. Under the cover of darkness, they handed over a copy of the journal's critical pages. "Tell the world," they urged, as the journalist disappeared. Into the night they felt a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived. The following morning, news broke of a massive scandal, names exposed, powerful figures implicated. The story exploded across headlines worldwide. Yet the couple knew the fight was far from over. Reprisals were coming. They had shaken the foundations of a secret empire, and now the empire would strike back. Their journey had brought them from mockery at a luxury watch shop to the heart of a conspiracy that threatened their lives. But through every twist and danger, one truth remained: they would not give up. Because some stories aren't just about survival, they're about justice, and sometimes the greatest discoveries come at the highest cost. The city was alive with tension, headlines screamed the truth, and the powerful trembled. But for the woman and her husband, the exposure was just the beginning of a new, even darker battle. Their names had been whispered in the shadows, their faces hidden behind veils of secrecy. But the society's reach extended far and wide. They had made enemies in the highest places, and those enemies were coming for them. In the quiet moments before dawn, the couple packed the few belongings they could carry. The apartment that once felt like a safe haven was no longer theirs. Every sound, every shadow held a threat. "We have to leave the city," the husband said, eyes grim but resolute. She nodded, though fear gripped her heart. The thought of leaving everything behind, friends, familiar streets, their life, was crushing. But survival meant sacrifice. Their journey took them far from the city's bright lights into the wilderness, where the silence was both a balm and a warning. Days turned into weeks as they navigated forests and mountains, living off the land and trusting only each other. The woman's mind replayed everything: the mocking saleswoman, the watch that started it all, the secret society, her father-in-law's legacy, the journal, and the betrayal. Despite everything, she found strength in their shared purpose. The truth they had uncovered was too important to be buried. One evening, as they sat by a campfire, the husband broke the silence. "We didn't just expose corruption," he said softly. "We gave people hope. People who've been silenced for too long." She smiled, the warmth of the fire matching a spark inside her. "But at what cost?" she asked. "We lost so much." He took her hand. "Sometimes the cost of justice is high, but if we don't stand for something, then what's left?" Their bond had deepened beyond words, tested by fear, loss, and a shared dream of a better world. Back in the city, the fallout was massive. The exposed members of the secret society scrambled to control the damage, but the public outrage was unstoppable. Protests erupted, demands for investigations flooded government offices, and the media relentlessly pursued every lead. But beneath the surface, a darker game played out. The society, though shaken, was far from defeated. Their networks ran deep and their retaliation was calculated. One night, the woman received an encrypted message on her burner phone. "You've done well, but the final chapter is yet to be written. Trust no one." The warning was clear. Their fight wasn't over. Despite the dangers, they began working with allies, activists, whistleblowers, and honest officials to dismantle the society's grip piece by piece. Every revelation came at a risk. Every victory was met with a new threat. The woman's courage inspired others. She shared their story in hushed forums and underground gatherings, becoming a symbol of resilience and truth. Her husband coordinated efforts to safeguard evidence, ensuring the legacy of justice continued beyond them. But even as they pressed forward, the emotional toll was undeniable. Loneliness, fear, and uncertainty haunted their nights. They grieved lost friends and the life they once had. Yet they found solace in small moments, a shared meal, a quiet laugh, a glance that said, "We're still here." One day, a breakthrough arrived. A high-ranking insider, moved by their bravery, provided critical information, documents and recordings that confirmed the society's illegal activities and implicated its leaders beyond doubt. The evidence was undeniable. The justice system responded. Trials began. Faces once untouchable stood in courtrooms, forced to answer for years of deceit and harm. The woman and her husband watched from afar, exhausted but hopeful, their names no longer whispered. In fear but spoken with respect, after months of turmoil, they returned to the city under new identities. Living quietly but purposefully, the woman visited the boutique where it all began. The store was unchanged, the luxury watches gleaming under soft lights. She smiled to herself, no longer the woman mocked, but the one who uncovered a hidden empire. She placed the original watch back in its box, now a symbol of survival, truth, and change. Looking up, she realized their journey was not just about a watch or a secret society. It was about the power of courage, the strength to face fear, the importance of truth, and the unbreakable spirit of human resilience. As they walked away from the boutique, hand in hand, she whispered, "This is just the beginning." Because sometimes the greatest stories don't end with justice served, they begin with hope. Lesson: true courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to face it. Even when the odds are stacked and the world seems against you, standing up for truth can inspire change beyond yourself. The journey may be painful and lonely, but resilience, love, and hope light the path toward a better future. And sometimes the smallest spark, a watch, a moment, a choice, can ignite a revolution. The E and